Assalamu alaikum and Happy New Year to all of our listeners. Welcome to the first Career Conversations podcast session for 2025. Host Farhan Yusuf here to have hopefully interesting conversations with different professionals about their career journeys. And for our first session for 2025, we have with us Brother Minhaal Meghji, who is from the insurance sector, a sector that, as with all other sectors, I'm quite interested in and look forward to hearing more about today. Welcome, Brother Minhaal.
Thanks, Farhan. Thank you for having me today. That's first. Secondly, just to introduce myself again, as you rightly said, my name is Minhaal Meghji. I'm an insurance professional working in the risk management and insurance industry. I currently work for a medium-sized brokerage. We are present in 3 countries, mainly in Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and that's pretty much about me in short.
Thank you, Minhaal. And already I'm hearing terminologies in your introduction, risk management, brokerage, and I hope as we go on today, we'll find out more about those terminologies. So to start us off, Minhaal, tell us a little bit about your educational journey and how you ended up in the insurance sector.
Okay. So just a disclaimer, I think this will put me in hot soup. A lot of people these days talk about passion. I think insurance happened to me. It's not something that I was passionate about. It wasn't innately within me, but I learned to love it. So I started off with my O-levels here in Shaban Robert Secondary School. Then I went to do my A-levels in Shaban Robert, and you'd be surprised, the friend circle that I had, everyone was in the science industry. And you know how the traditional education is, it's either science or arts. PCB, ECA, these are the in general subjects that we have. And as I was growing up, you were someone that I was looking up to as well. And I was aspiring to be a pharmacist. And I think you know about that. So by God's grace, alhamdulillah, I had the grades and I completed my A-levels and I got into pharmacy medical school as well. But then I decided, was that really something that I wanted to do? And I stumbled upon one of the career counselors, Hassan, who took me through a series of tests and asked me a couple of questions, and then the results showed what I'm good at. And then we decided that, okay, let's not touch pharmacy or medicine. Let's try something different. And at that time, there was something called public health. Of course, it's very prominent right now. So I had gone to South Africa and I was doing my bachelor's in public health, but one of my subjects was business management as well. And I was very much interested in both. So, and I was studying on an educational loan. So now imagine that conversation that I had with my parents and my family back home that's saying that, you know what, I really don't want to do public health anymore. I'm very much interested in management, and I decided to come back. So those were very difficult conversations. And I think it's important for students who are in the field, who are actually in A-levels, that, you know, take some time to yourself. Don't let your friends or the people around you make that decision for you, because that was one of the biggest mistakes I made in my life. Yeah, okay, all my friends are doctors. I have people who look up, the people I look up to are pharmacists, so I want to do this. But when I was in South Africa and those late night dinners when I was on my own, that's when I decided, I was like, you know what? This is not something that I want to do. So I had to have a difficult conversation with my family back home. And yeah, then I came back. I completed my business management online through the University of Worcester. And then I said to myself, okay, this is very general. I need to specialize in something. And then I remembered that I have friends who are also in the insurance industry. So I started reading on insurance, and that caught my attention. So that's when I started even super specializing in the insurance sector. And now, alhamdulillah, I'm a qualified insurance professional. I have my cert CII, and I'm focusing on CPDs, continuous professional development, and let's see where life takes me.
Thank you for that, Minhaal. And I think, you know, it's great to hear this. As much as you thought you'd get into trouble for that, I think one of the things that we've often discussed on this podcast is exactly that, right? I'm a huge preacher of adaptability in today's market. Like, you sort of have to look at what opportunities are coming for you and be able to adapt. And like you said, sometimes you find yourself in situations where you're doing something that initially you feel like you're not very passionate about, but that passion can grow, it can be nurtured, right? And I
100%.
think that's a very important lesson, because in many interactions with regards to careers with young people, there seems to be a lot of emphasis on I have to do something that I'm passionate about, which is great, but then you also need to know that passion suddenly appears out of nowhere sometimes. Sometimes passion needs to be grown. So great, message is right there in your introduction, and a very interesting journey. I think the other thing that we've also discussed in the past, and that is, I think, very important, is not being afraid to pivot and to change, right?
100%.
Because I think with many young people, again, there's so much pressure as far as decision making is concerned, where people are afraid of making mistakes or doing something and then later on realizing that they have to change their mind. But that's part of the game. I feel that's part of your career journey. You will always find out new things, you will realize new things, and it's okay to make that transition.
Yeah.
So Minhal, if we can talk a little bit more about this certification that you mentioned. So how does that work? Does that mean that anyone can be an insurance professional? Are there requirements? Tell us a bit about that.
Okay, so I think there are prerequisites. So in Tanzania, you see, I didn't do my insurance studies here, but the little that I know from the friends that I have in the industry who have studied in IFM, UDSM, one of the prerequisites is that you need to at least finish your A level. Yeah. If you're doing your O levels and then you want to jump into that, so there are some papers that it's something called COP, Certificate of Proficiency, that give you a basic technical know-how of what the industry is. And then there are diplomas, and then there is a 3-year bachelor's degree. But that's in the Tanzanian market. But we also have the Indian market, something called the III. But what I did was the CIA, yeah, from the Chartered Insurance Institute that's been given in the UK. So there are levels to that. How, in the financial sector, we have the ACCA, there are papers that you need to complete to reach the highest level. So we have the basic level, and then you have the Cert CII, we have the DIP CII, and then we have the ACII. So a lot of CEOs and COOs in the insurance industries have actually reached that level. And then there's a level higher to that. It's called the fellowship level. So it's basically a continuous professional development. What do you call this? It's CPD. So, but you need to have at least O levels and A levels, and then you can embark on your journey.
And these certifications or these exams that you do, the way you study for them is you study on your own, they send you materials, or is there like somewhere where people can go for classes? Like, how does that work?
Okay, so what happens, because we're students who are in the African continent, we're not in the UK. I believe in the UK they do have classes, and there's centers that you can go give in your exams at. But here what we do is we pay for examination papers, and when you pay for a module, you get the learning material, you get possible questions, you get tutorial materials, you get case studies specifically for that module, and there is a date and time that they tell you, go to this center, this is where your examination is going to take place. But that's for the first level. The higher you go, then there are papers that you need to write as well. Yeah, it's not only purely examination based. Yeah, there's a lot of research that you need to do. There are papers that you need to submit, and then we have people in the UK that judge you. Sometimes you also have phone calls with your tutors there. So it's for African students. It's virtual. Yeah.
And how long does this whole process take, or is it self-paced?
It's self-paced. So for the first level, there are 3 papers, 3 modules that you need to do. Now it depends. Like, I did it in a year and a half. So because I was studying my bachelor's in business management, I was also studying insurance, and I was also working at the same time. Yeah, so gaining experience. So I did it in every 4 months. So my first paper was in the first 4 months, and then I took a break for another month, And then I took another 4 months to complete the other one. And then I took a break of 2 months, and then I took another 4 months to complete the third one. So as we speak, I have already applied for my second stage. And inshallah, if things go well, then I'll be sitting for those exams as well.
And this is more for personal interest as well, because I have, in the health sector also, we are talking a lot about like health insurance right now. It's a big topic. I'm sure you know as well. There with the country also embarking on this universal health insurance. Are there specializations within this? So like, can you specialize in health insurance or some other kind of insurance for that matter?
Okay, so there are a lot of sectors within the insurance industry. Personally, I am a professional in general insurance, so I don't deal with health insurance. So for example, when it comes to house insurances, vehicle insurances, aviation, marine insurances, that's my area of specialty. But we have people who are fully focused on health and life insurance. Yeah, and then, so there are different sectors. And within the general insurance, we have people who are just specifically doing vehicle insurance. That's it. Yeah. And it's interesting because there's a lot of things that you need to know. For example, when it comes to motor vehicle insurance, in Tanzania, it's some sort of a business. A guy with a red color sports car and a guy with a family minivan, both of them will pay the same premium. But in the West, it doesn't happen that way. You go into the psychology of an individual. If you have a two-door car, that means the chances are that you are more of a risk taker. You love driving fast. The color even matters. Red, yeah, outrageous. You're out there. You're a risk taker. So the premiums that you're going to pay for that vehicle will be very, very different than an individual with a family who's driving a Toyota Hiace or a minivan. So yeah, I mean, we have different areas that you can specialize on. That's just one example I've given you. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
But so is that within the studies or is it just a practice thing? Like, is there, when you're going through these certification exams, can you specialize in that process, or does that certification just teach you general principles and then you sort of specialize in practice?
So it's both. In the start, they definitely give you a know-how of the whole industry, of all the products, and then you can super specialize what you want to do. So I have people who are purely focused on domestic house insurances, and they will never touch, for example, let's say, a project insurance. Yeah. So as you grow, you can definitely choose what you want to do. Yeah. But generally for me, I'm fully focused on the general insurance department. So I deal with different types of insurances. So currently we can see Tanzania is very open to investment. We have a lot of projects that are happening within the country. So one of the things in my field as a broker is that I will judge a risk. So if we have a contractor who's building a house, a simple house, and is he building the house in a area which is more prone to flooding? So my job is to ensure that the premium he pays for that insurance will be different than someone who's just building a house, let's say in Kariako, where there are no floodings. It's a purely residential area or a commercial area. So these are the things that we generally do.
I feel like we went a few steps ahead. So maybe let's take a few steps back, Minhaal, and tell us basic, what is insurance, right? I feel like we jumped right into it, but some of our listeners, including myself, maybe we need a better understanding. I think we all hear the term insurance. Everyone has been introduced to it in one way or the other, either for travel or for something like that. And I think basically all of us understand that it's some kind of protection or cover for you, right? When you are exposed to different things. But let's hear it from a professional. What is insurance? And if you can talk about some of those things that you mentioned earlier, risk management, you being a broker, what does that mean? So we can, understand what that industry looks like.
Okay, so insurance is basically a financial arrangement or a financial agreement for your clients. Clients could be individuals or could be businesses. You're basically telling them, this is the arrangement, and if something was to happen to your business or things that you value, we've got your back. We're going to make sure that we're going to cover your potential financial losses. So a simple example or an analogy is a tightrope analogy. If you have a tight rope, you are the tightrope, be it your business, be it you as an individual, and you're walking on the tightrope. Now imagine when you're walking or when your business operation is running on the tightrope, you have a safety net underneath it. Yeah. So if something happens and you fall, that safety net is going to make sure that you don't reach the ground, you don't hit the ground. Yeah. It's going to take you back where you started. So that's basically insurance. Yeah. Unless is there something specific you need to.
Well, as a concept, yes, but what are, so for example, as you said, you are with a brokerage and you are a
Right.
broker. So what does that mean? Like, who is a broker and what are they
Okay.
brokering exactly?
Okay. So I feel like you're asking about the different careers in insurance.
Yes. Or the
Okay. So as a broker, basically I'm an intermediary, like the name suggests, between an insurer and the client. So the insurer will not speak to the client, but I do that job on behalf of the client. So we have the client, we have a broker, and then we have the insurance company. We will negotiate terms and policy conditions on behalf of our client with the insurance company to ensure they get the best coverage. Yeah. And then the insurance company, once they take on that risk to say that, okay, we can, we will take on this risk and we will cover this individual. You need to understand the market. If the insurance company is taking on that risk, they will not 100% cover you. They will reinsure that. So for example, in Tanzania, you have your mobile phone worth $1,000. You come to me as your broker, I will place your risk, for example, with More Assurance. Yeah. More Assurance will not take 100% of that risk. They'll be like, okay, we are willing to retain 10%, 90%, we're going to reinsure it. With the reinsurance, we have reinsurance companies which are in Kenya and different parts of the world. So basically, that's that. But when it comes to the career, we have underwriters, we have claims adjusters, we have actuaries, we have lawyers who can also be in the insurance sector. So for example, an underwriter, if students who are interested in insurance, they want to focus on underwriting, an underwriter's job is basically to analyze a certain risk. I gave you an example. I'll give you another example when it comes to life insurance. As an underwriter, if you are 50 years old and you're a smoker, yeah, and if you're 30 years old, non-smoker, tell me honestly, would you be paying the same premiums? 100% not. The risk is entirely different. You're more prone to die rather than this person who's living a healthy lifestyle. Yeah, so that's an underwriter's job. And an underwriter will say that, okay, I am willing to take this risk, but to what capacity? Am I willing to take it 100%? Or am I willing to take a certain percentage? Am I willing to underwrite a certain percentage of this risk? But then the other percentage, I'll give it to someone else, or I'll ask other insurance companies to join in to support me in assisting this client. So that's basically underwriting. But when it comes to a claims person, what will happen is that if you have suffered a financial loss, or if you have lost a valuable or some sort of damage has happened, a claims adjuster's job is to go back to the policy and read the fine print and see what your cover is, and then come up with a settlement. Now you need to understand, a claims adjuster and an underwriter are both working in the insurance company. As a broker, it's our job to ensure we get them the best deal. So we are basically doing everything. We're underwriters, we're claims managers, we will negotiate when it comes to settlement offers if there is something that happens. So this is the basics. And then you have actuaries. Actuaries mainly deal with statistics and mathematics. So these are the people and individuals that will tell you, based on the data that they have, how much should Farhan pay based on what he wants to insure. Yeah, but in Tanzania, it's slightly different. In the West, you have these people, actuaries, who actually do that. But in Tanzania, we have something called minimum rates order. So the rates are fixed. What we fight on is customer service. You get me? But there is a lot of potential, there's a lot of room for actuaries, and they usually are working in insurance companies. And then we have lawyers. A lawyer's job is to ensure that you're compliant with the law. So we have mining companies, we have insurance companies, we have brokers, and we have lawyers who work in these firms to ensure that the company is compliant with what the government is telling them. So again, there are different careers that you can embark on when you are getting into the insurance industry.
And this is very interesting because I feel like growing up, when I used to think about the insurance industry, for some reason, the way you hear about it is that to get into the insurance industry, you have to do actuarial science, and that means a lot of math. And I think I've mentioned previously on this podcast, I've always been a bit mathematically challenged. And so, it's nice to hear that either it was always this way and maybe we just didn't know, or that the industry has evolved in a way where there can be different people within the space. And I know, for example, when it comes to health insurance and like the National Health Insurance Fund of the country, there are even like a lot of health professionals who are also within insurance, right? So because you need to sort of connect the technical areas and the health claim to.
Correct. I forgot about that because it's not my area of expertise, but we have doctors working in insurance companies, real doctors, who can diagnose, who can treat you. They work in insurance companies because when a claim happens, they look at your file. Is this really claimable? Within the terms and policies and conditions. So sorry, I cut you off, but it's not my area of expertise. That's why I forgot. But you're right. Doctors can even be insurers.
Yeah, so that's very fascinating to me. So Minhal, what would you say are like important skills that someone needs to have if they're thinking about getting into the insurance industry? I'm sure if you're planning to be an actuary, then probably maths is one of those skills, but what else? I know I've heard you say negotiation, so I guess negotiation skills sort of play a role. You need to be a good talker, you need to be able to communicate with people, but tell us more.
So again, there are two things. Broadly put, two things. One is the technical know-how. In any field, if you're going to be a doctor, you need to have the technical expertise to understand the anatomy of a body, to diagnose a disease. That's in the medical field. In the insurance field, you also need to have the technical know-how, the basic understanding of what insurance is, what are the insurance lingo, how are things done. That's number one. But number two, and this is the biggest challenge that I see in Tanzanian industry, interpersonal skills and the soft skills. I feel like you can have the technical know-how, but if you don't know how to communicate it, there's a problem, there is a gap. How do you speak to a client? How do you speak to the insurance company? Communication skills are very, very important. Attention to detail. Are you someone who just likes to skim through things? No, you need to read the fine print. You need to be a reader. And it's mentally exhausting to do these things. You also need to know the art of negotiation, because you're not going to just be speaking to the client and it's all roses. Oh, don't worry, we're going to do this for you. But when something happens, it's a promise. You're going to fight with insurance companies to say that, look, we had negotiated this, but we're not happy with the settlement. This is not what we're looking for. So negotiation skills are very, very important. Communication, negotiation. Again, one other thing that I've seen is teamwork. These are skills. These are important skills. Sadly, I have seen students who have graduated, but they don't have these skills when it comes to even writing an email or writing a letter. It's difficult for them. And I feel like the education system also needs to change in all fields, not only in the insurance field. And that's something I feel like even you know about. A lot of people fail in these interpersonal skills. So again, technical know-how and the non-technical know-how. These are the two broad skills that you need in any industry.
And Minhal, how would you say, what helped you sort of grow some of these non-technical skills in your journey, right? Like if people are, because as you mentioned, a lot of these things are not taught within the curriculum, right? So what, in your opinion, do students need to do to sort of gain some of these skills that you're talking about?
I think find a good boss. That's 100%. That's what's going to help you. You see, as you graduate and you go into the work field, If you have a bad boss, then trust me, you'll always find it difficult. But if you have someone who's willing to be there, to show you how things are done. When I was growing up, I used to shadow a lot of people. I think in one of your podcasts, you were speaking with this career counselor, and shadowing is one of the most important thing. Yeah. So I used to shadow a lot of insurance professionals, how they speak, how they negotiate, how they communicate. All of these things are very, very important. And work somewhere. Don't just work for the money in the early years of your career. Don't work for the money. You won't believe if I tell you my salary. Of course, I'm not going to tell you on camera. Or when I started, I was getting paid peanuts. But it was the experience, the people that I used to work for. I made sure that I learned a lot of these things, not just the technical know-how. Yeah, the non-technical know-how, how things are done after office hours, what sort of communications take place. Yeah, and then when I later transitioned from working in an insurance company to a broker, I was also looking at the people I work for who are going to be my managing directors, because there's so many things you don't know. Trust me, there's so many things you don't know. And when you shadow these sort of people, you learn. But you also need to have the eagerness to learn. If you're just someone who's complacent and life's good, content with whatever you are, you're never going to get far. Yeah, you need to have the drive to do better, to be better. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Have a good boss.
So proactiveness, continuous learning. Yeah. Of course, hopefully being able to find environments where you are allowed to grow, because I know sometimes that can be a challenge.
Yeah.
But then I can also use this opportunity to plug the channel where you are seeing this particular podcast, Careers Hub. There's a lot of resources on the platform about things like communications and how you should be getting some of these interpersonal skills, and also in terms of like opportunities, for those of us from the community who will be listening to this. There's a lot of competitions that are there, such as one on debates that is coming up. So there's a lot of ways that you can get these skills. I mean, I'm sure, Minhal, even while you were studying, still there were things that you are already doing, right? There's platforms to try out public speaking. There are platforms to try out, negotiations as well, right, when you are still in that student environment. So the key thing, and this is something that we hear every time we are speaking to professionals on this career conversation, is that proactiveness, getting involved in different things, continuous learning, like it's the same thematic areas. And I hope that our listeners are keeping track of that and understanding that. I think especially in today's times within the market, it's a lot to do with, it's more about the interpersonal skills sometimes than it is even about technical know-how. Because for technical know-how, we also have, things like AI, and I'd love to hear your perspectives on how that is featuring in the insurance industry, because you mentioned, for example, people need to be readers and read the fine print. And these days, in my experience, I see more and more, instead of reading things, people are just putting documents on ChatGPT and asking for a summary and then reading the summary. So is that something that you think is a challenge for your industry if people start developing those kinds of behaviors?
So Farhan, again, AI, it's the hot topic right now. We have things like ChatGPT, we have things like DeepSeek that has just come up from the Chinese market. But again, if you are someone who likes shortcuts, who likes just to feed things into DeepSeek and ChatGPT, that's dangerous. That's very dangerous, because shortcuts will always end up, making you miss something. And one of the most important thing in the insurance industry is the policy, the fine print. It has to be very, very detailed. The words are very simple, but it's very, very detailed and very thorough. So if you're someone who likes summaries, you're going to miss out on something or the other. Again, AI is a great tool that can help a lot of insurance personnel in different fields. But yeah, when it comes to shortcuts, don't.
Now, I like asking more and more this question to the various professionals that we speak with, because it is the reality, right? Like, it's here. And I also interact with a lot of students and, just generally professionals as well, who nowadays just don't read. It's just everything goes into ChatGPT, gets summarized, and people are just reading summaries. Like, I've seen students do it, I've seen professionals do it, and I agree with you. I mean, personally also, as much as I am very much, it's a technology, it's here, we need to learn how to live with it. But there are definitely certain things where, especially at this point of time, it's not ready for utilization and all of that, right? And I do think there are careers, for example, such as law, right? Just law in general, where so many things are about like nuances and details and fine print and all of that, where you can't be sort of taking these shortcuts. In fact, I have to say this. I was reading some post on Twitter from this person who is, I think, a professor in one of the universities in the West, and he was mentioning about talking to a young graduate who's just recently graduated, and the person actually says that I am, I could see it was difficult for that professional for that young person to even find words to express himself.
Right.
Like, he kept hesitating and he kept stopping, and I asked him, I was like, why is this happening? And he's like, I'm so used to like ChatGPT finishing my sentences that I'm now like, even conversing is becoming difficult. Now, of course, the professor also says in that particular post that I'm not necessarily criticizing AI. I'm just saying that as humanity, we are conducting the biggest experiment on our cognitive ability that has never been done before. And so we really need to be aware of where this is taking us, because if we become too dependent on this technology, then what happens to our sort of cognitive or mental processing and all of that. So it's very interesting to me. And of course, different professionals also, like, I think there are certain careers that are much more sort of suited for applications of AI and all of that at this point of time compared to other industries. So that's definitely a difference, and happy to hear your thoughts about that.
Thank you.
Minhal, within the insurance industry, are there any specific sort of new opportunities that you are seeing at this point of time? Like, are there, like, for example, you've spoken about health insurance, and I think personally that's a big thing, because I think, we have a sort of global target for universal health coverage, where we want to make sure everyone is adequately covered as far as health is concerned, and people don't have to necessarily go through like, crazy expenses. I'm forgetting the word for it, but I know there's a word for it. When people get sick and go to hospitals and end up paying crazy amounts of money for, certain complications that they may have. And that can, actually change the social status of people, right? From one strata of the society to another. And so, yeah, so I know, like, personally, I can even say, because I'm from the sector, health insurance is huge and is going to become huge, because more and more African countries especially are looking into developing these health insurance schemes that are all encompassing in certain ways or the other. But are there any other sectors that you are seeing come up more, like, again, to bring AI? I'm always thinking about how self-driving cars affect motor insurance, right? And all of that. So are there any specific opportunities that you are seeing?
Yeah, so again, rightly said, self-driving cars, Tesla and all of these. Of course, in Tanzania, we don't have that. But I don't know much about it, but it's something that I'm eager to learn. And I definitely will go and read on it. But Tanzania right now, the insurance industry is, I think the biggest opportunity is cybersecurity. And I mean, of course, Tanzanian firms, we have never seen a spike or such a surge when it comes to cyber attacks. But right now, it's on the rise. A lot of firms are being attacked, and cyber insurance, cyberspace in the insurance industry is something that's upcoming. And it's something that I've even enrolled myself in to learn more about. So I think you can ask me that question maybe next month when I know more about it. But yeah, I think cyber is something that's really, really upcoming in Tanzania. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, spoiler alert, we are going to do a future session on cybersecurity and, as a career. So, watch out for that. But I mean, yes, I completely agree with you. We might also have been attacked and we just don't know, right? Like that's one thing. And then I think the other thing is that we've also not reached the point where people are ready to share that they have gone through an attack because, again, from the little bit that I know about cybersecurity as well is that it's a collective effort, right? Like if you're going through an attack, you need to share it with others so that they can be prepared for it. But if you're keeping the information within yourself because you're worried about others finding out that you've been attacked, it defeats the purpose. Like that just isolates you and it gives the hackers or the hackers basically more potential to attack others because that information is not circulating. So it's again, I agree with you. It's a big area and I had never thought of it that way, that someone could ensure themselves against a cyber attack. So like, what does that look like?
So again, as I said, I'm not very thorough with that, but the little that I know is that mainly firms who deal with a lot of data, for example, banks, financial institution, tax advisors, we have all these big companies. They deal with a lot of confidential data of their clients when it comes to finances, audited returns, and everything is not like back in the day where, you have a file, hard copies. Everything is online, everything is on the cloud, and everything is protected. So you're basically protecting the leak of that data, or if something happens, what are the repercussions? Yeah, if today, Farhan, I have your medical data and I'm in charge of protecting that, and if I've been attacked, someone has access to your data, you can sue me in the courts of law. So there are repercussions to that, and you're basically covering, what do you call this, the liability aspect. Yeah, you're also covering the data recovery aspect and how you can mitigate these things from happening again. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, but it's very prominent in the financial sector, the banks, the insurance industries, and the tax advisory companies. It's very, very prominent there.
What I like about insurance as a career personally is that it is linked to every sector, sort of, right? So you can almost choose to be in which sector, where you are also applying the sector knowledge, but then you're also applying the insurance knowledge as well, right? And I think that's very interesting as a career prospect. Like I find it exciting. Minhal, what has been the most, or one of the most challenging things for you being in this career, and what has been one of the most fulfilling things for you being in this career?
Okay, I'll start with the most fulfilling thing. Insurance is all about having someone's back. So one of our personal motto in our company is, we've got your back. If something happens to you, we're going to fulfill that promise. And I love it. I love it when, of course, I don't love it when something happens to someone, but when it comes to the settlement process, when you're actually seeing that smile on your client's face, that's fulfilling. That not all is lost. We're here for you. We're going to take you back to where you are. That's one of the most fulfilling things, having someone's back. One of the most challenging things, and especially in the Tanzanian industry, in the Tanzanian market, is that people want cheap things. Yeah, and they say cheap is expensive. So someone doesn't want to know what they're buying. Someone just wants to have something in place, to say that, oh yeah, I have insurance, but what are you buying? Do you understand? And I think pricing, when it comes to, people are always looking for the cheapest thing, and people don't want to understand what they're buying. Awareness. Yeah. And one of the challenges is that the notion that all insurers are fraudsters. You're just selling me a promise. It's not a product. 100% it's not a product. It's not something tangible. It's a promise. But if you go to the right broker or the right agent, We're here to guide you. And I feel like a lot of people are not ready for that conversation. Wewe nipatie tu kitu kidogo ili I can get away with something. Yeah, one of my legal requirements is to have a minimum coverage of 10 million. But Baba, 10 million is not something that you're working on. You're working on a project that's worth 1 billion shillings. How is 10 million to 1 billion? You basically just don't buy it. Don't buy that cover. Yeah. And I personally don't sell to these sort of people. I don't. I want my clients to understand what they are buying. And it has been a challenge. So that's one of the most challenging things in the Tanzanian market. Yeah. People do not want to pay. People do not want to understand what they are paying for. Yeah. They just want an easy way out. And one of the most fulfilling things for me is that we've got people's back. And that's the motto for Trans-Africa Insurance Brokers. I'm self-marketing myself.
Yeah. No, I think, and again, I keep going back to the health insurance aspect. I guess generally we do need like awareness about insurance as a
100%.
concept, just within the community. We talk about it a lot on the health side because I think the challenge is sort of convincing people to invest in something that they may or may not use, right? And people are always thinking about, yeah, but I may pay this and then I would, there's some people who will tell you in the health sector that like, I hardly fall sick in a year, like I don't think I need to pay all this. And when I get sick,
I'll tell you an interesting story, Farhan. I'll tell you, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, please.
This is very important. I had one of the people that I knew personally for the past 5 years has been taking a comprehensive motor vehicle insurance. The car is fully covered for. On the 6th year, he said, nothing has happened to my car. He takes a third-party coverage where his car is not covered. And bam, he gets an accident. So it's funny. It's funny how things work out,
Yeah. And yes, we see that a lot. And yes, I just remember the word. It's called catastrophic expenditure.
Right.
Which we talk about a lot on the health sector because you suddenly fall sick, you have a complication, you were never insurance covered. In fact, unfortunately, we saw a lot of that even during COVID-19, for example, where people, of course, that was a very unprecedented situation. And I don't think it was even part of many of the schemes and all of that in different ways. But we're always talking about that like one, you may be very healthy and, unfortunately, one car accident can, take you just from the health perspective, not even from the vehicle perspective, but from the health perspective, it can take you through so many procedures, etc., that, we know of people who've gone bankrupt or have lost a lot of their money in that. But it's very difficult to prepare people for an outcome that may not happen. And, like you mentioned, Murphy's Law, sometimes things go wrong when you least expect it, everything goes wrong at the same time and all of that. So it's really, I think generally, and I hope that through this session, we are not only creating awareness about, insurance as a career, but also insurance as a concept, because I think that is something that is very much needed as well. Minhaal, last parting words for students, people who want to get into the insurance sector, any last words of advice, guidance, etc.?
I think with any field, not only in the insurance industry, it's important to do thorough research. And then again, thorough research does not necessarily mean that you will end up in the right place. Sometimes life happens to you, sometimes life happens for you, like for example in my case. But again, if you are interested in the insurance industry, please do your research on how the market works. And one of the most important things is seek advice. Speak to someone who's already in the industry. Speak about how their daily life is, what are the challenges, what are the financial packages that you can get, because it's important. So again, it's important to speak to someone who's going to give you honest feedback on how the industry is. So again, that's all from me. And thank you very much for having me, Farhan. This has been a pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Minhaal, and what a great note to end on, because that's exactly why we do these conversations, because we want, people, aspiring students, etc., to hear from professionals like yourself, candidly about these different careers, pathways, markets, etc. So thank you for being with us today, and to all our listeners, we look forward to more conversations in 2025.